when these lights go down and I'm a rolling stone, when the show leaves town and we put it on the road, I've got a wandering mind and a hand on the wheel. People listen to these songs, do you know how I feel? 'Cause this ain't some rhinestone bit, and this ain't some circus show. Son, this is pure cowboy shit. Ain't your daddy's rodeo. No, it ain't his rodeo.
Today's show is sponsored by Farmer Joe's Fresh Market, located at 1401 Southwest Pine Island Road in beautiful Cape Coral, Florida. Farmer Joe's has Old Neighbor corned beef brisket for $5.99 a pound, the perfect for St. Patrick's Day treat. Farmer Joe's is also ready to take your pre-order for Easter dinner, which consists of a 5-pound Dietz and Watson ham, baked to perfection, summer berry salad, sweet potato casserole, pineapple stuffing, and Hawaiian rolls. Everything you need and more. Lee County's greatest grocery store, Farmer Joe's Fresh Market. Veteran political analyst, businessman, attorney, multimedia commentator, Mr. Fort O'Connell joins us. You can find Fort at FortO'Connell.com and Fort O'Connell on X and most reputable news outlets. I am Smokin Joe, and we welcome you to the Cracker Culture podcast for real Floridians. Ford, we're gearing up for round 2 of Trump versus Biden. Now, I was sure that Trump would be victorious in the 2020 election. Unfortunately, we've suffered going on 4 years under the control of the Democrat delusion that Joe Biden was the better choice. I have one question. In any way, are we better off now than we were under Donald Trump's leadership?
Absolutely not. On every single metric, we are worse off under Joe Biden than we ever were under Donald Trump. And, the two biggest things are the inflation, the prices of everything going up nationally about 20%, the prices of groceries going up 25%, electricity more than 30%. These are not luxury items. These are the essentials for everyday Americans and everyday Floridians. And then you look at the chaos at the border. We don't know who we're vetting. We don't know who's coming in. And I think we just heard the FBI director say it this week that we may be closer to 9/11 than we have been at any point in the last 2 decades.
Well, it seems that even many members of the Democrat Party have lost the desire to live another 4 years under the Biden regime. Now, I heard some leaders in some black communities coming out and said, asking that Trump come talk to them, that they see the amount of money they're giving these refugees and stuff to live there, and the kids in the schools need help too. And they're upset. They're upset with what Biden's done. And this is his voter base.
That's exactly right. Joe Biden is putting Americans, particularly minorities and poorer communities, behind illegal immigrants. I mean, this is the resources that they're taking away from American citizens, particularly the poorer you are, the more screwed you are by Biden's border chaos, because you are being hurt most because resources will be going to your community or instead going to illegal aliens.
Well, and, I don't know what they said, something about that was giving them $9,000 a month. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, the fact that you can come to this country illegally and you get a free food and help with housing and $9,000 a month. I mean, that's just unbelievable.
Well, think about what you just said. Do you think that they're deterring anybody from coming here illegally? Heck, I think there's something like 100 people from 170 different countries came in last year. I want to be clear. There are only 191 countries in the United Nations. So the entire world is coming here, and Joe Biden is giving them gift cards, health care, and everything else that are rightly made for United States citizens and green card holders, not for the rest of the world.
Well, tomorrow ends early voting, at least down here, and we've discussed this. I would like for you to explain to the viewers what the electoral college is and how they are affecting Trump's pathway back to the presidency.
Yeah, every 10 years we take the census, and this is how each state determines its electoral value in the electoral college. For example, in 2020, our home state of Florida was worth 29 electoral votes. Today, Florida is worth 30 electoral votes because we grew in population. Unfortunately, the census does not just take into account American citizens, it also takes into account illegal aliens. So all people that reside within a state, every time we take the census. To become the president of the United States, you need to win 270 electoral votes. And this iteration of the Electoral College, essentially 6 states are going to wind up deciding this, whose point value is worth 77 electoral votes. That is Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Nevada, Georgia, and Arizona. Those are the states that we are going to be fighting over between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. And remember, when it came to those swing states in 2020, Joe Biden only won the states of Arizona, Georgia, and Wisconsin, which would be enough if Trump won them this time around to become the 47th president of the United States by only 43,000 votes. So any sort of vote that Joe Biden loses from 2020 to 2024 is a victory for Donald Trump, which is why the Democrats are freaking out about losing 5% more potentially of the black vote, or Donald Trump coming even with Hispanics in those states, because all of those, permutations or consequences are going to lead to Joe Biden losing.
Well, current polls have Donald Trump ahead in the Electoral College with 297 projected votes for Trump and 241 leaning towards Biden. This doesn't account for the effect of third-party candidates.
That's exactly right. So what I just went through what those 6 swing states are going to be. Let's remember, a lot of people watching will say, I think Donald Trump can win New Jersey. It ain't going to happen. Forget about it. Okay. And someone's going to say Joe Biden can win Texas. Eventually, the Democrats might turn Texas blue through illegal immigration, but it ain't going to happen in 2024. So basically 40 states are decided. Now, the key is whether it's RFK Jr., Cornel West, Jill Stein, all these third-party candidates you've heard about. The question is, do they get on the ballot in these battleground states? Thus far, it appears the one who's done the most work is RFK Jr., who I believe is on the ballot in Nevada and Arizona. The Democrats are trying to block him from getting on the ballots in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, as well as Arizona. And the reason is very simple. While RFK Jr. draws voters from both Trump and Biden, he draws more voters from Biden than he does from Trump. And the Democrats recognize that Joe Biden could lose just by a third-party candidate being on the ballot in those 6 states.
Well, Ford, I want to discuss Special Counsel Robert Hur's testimony. But first, I want to play a clip and see if you can explain. Joe Biden spoke at that testimony before it got started, and you tell me what I'm listening to.
I'm of the view, as you know, that the conduct of the response in the Gaza Strip has been over the top. I think that, as you know, initially, the president of Mexico, Sisi, did not want to open up the gate to allow humanitarian material to get in. I talked to him. I convinced him to open the gate. Let them make them part of the Middle East and recognize them fully in return for certain things that the United States would commit to do. And the commitment that we were proposing to do related to two items. I'm not going to go in detail, but one of them was to deal with the protection against their arch enemy to the northwest, northeast, I should say. The second one, by providing ammunition and material for them to defend themselves.
Now, Ford, look, I didn't know that Mexico had a desire to become part of the Middle East first.
That's exactly right. I mean, this is a man who's not well. What Joe Biden just said was that Mexico, which is about 10,000 miles away from Gaza, he called Mexico to help with the refugees in Gaza. That's insane. And then he says, well, I talked to President Sisi. That is the president of Egypt. He has confused Mexico with Egypt. And I promise you, nobody, no head leader in the history of the world has confused those two countries because they could not be more opposites.
Well, I think it's so like icing on the cake to what they're even interviewing Robert Hur about, because Robert Hur made the comment that he didn't think that he was. He remembered things quite the way. He basically said he was senile, but but yeah, it just kind of like rubber stamped it before the testimony even begun.
Yeah, look, here's what Robert Hur, special counsel Robert Hur, said when it came to the Biden classified documents. He basically said Biden willfully retained classified documents and did so not only as vice president, but did so for years. I'm not exonerating him from this willful retention of classified documents, but I'm going to say that a jury wouldn't prosecute him because he has a faulty memory and he's lost his marbles. That is what Robert Hur said. Now, stepping back as a Republican, you should be mad as hell because in the last 8 years, there's only been 3 presidential nominees: Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, and Donald Trump. Okay, and all 3 of them have been found with classified documents. The problem is only one of them is being charged for the willful retention of classified documents, and that is one Donald J. Trump. That is the 2 tiers of justice right there, smacking America in the face.
Well, it wasn't no picnic for Robert Hur. He was taking it from both the Republicans and Democrats, but the Democrats kept trying to push this narrative that he exonerated Biden, and he said by no means is that what his testimony reflected.
Well, look, the Democrats were pushing a narrative, what I call one for the ages. What they were basically saying is Joe Biden doesn't have a faulty memory. Robert Hur, you're a Republican hack. That's why you're saying this. The reason why Joe Biden's not being prosecuted is because he cooperated with you. And all of this is, therefore, he's exonerated. He was never exonerated. Robert Hur pushed back at least 10, 15 times saying, not exonerated, just not going to prosecute. And that is where the Democrats got mad. I think the Republicans, though, missed a golden opportunity here. What the Republicans should have spent their time doing is, hey, look, Biden's not going to be charged. What they should have spent that 5-6 hours of testimony on is asking Robert Hur how he came to the conclusion that Joe Biden had a faulty memory and constantly returning to the point of a faulty memory, because then you could have 5 hours of telling the entire nation that Joe Biden's elevator does not reach the top floor.
Well, I got a clip and see what Robert Hur said here.
I'm going to presume that you would never prosecute someone you thought was outright innocent.
Correct.
In this case, did you reach a conclusion that this man was outright innocent?
That conclusion is not reflected in my report, sir.
Right. So you did not reach that conclusion, or it would have been in your report.
I viewed my task of explaining my decision to the Attorney General as being based on my judgment and my assessment of the evidence. Would a conviction at trial be the probable outcome? And that's
I just want to make sure the record is complete in that, because I think it's extremely important. You did not reach an idea that he had committed no wrong. You reached a conclusion that you would not prevail at trial and therefore did not take it forward. Is that correct?
Correct, Congressman.
So this lengthy, expensive, and independent investigation resulted in a complete exoneration of President Joe Biden. For every document you discussed in your report, you found insufficient evidence that the president violated any laws about possession or retention of classified materials. The primary law that you analyzed for potential prosecution was part of the Espionage Act, 18 U.S.C. 793E, which criminalizes willful retention or disclosure of national defense information. Is that correct?
Congresswoman, that is one statute that we analyzed. I need to go back and make sure that I take note of the word that you used, exoneration. That is not a word that
I'm
appears
going to continue with my questions. I'm going to continue with my questions. I know that the term
I ultimately reached related to whether sufficient evidence existed such that the likely outcome
you exonerated
would be a conviction.
I know that the term willful
retention
has a Mr. Hur, it's my time.
Yeah, look, the Democrats tried to put words in your mouth, and I give her credit. He just kept on. He wouldn't, that's what they try to do, is get you to clam up. They try to talk over you and shut you up, but he wouldn't have it.
Well, that's exactly right. What was going on in that hearing, particularly for the Democrats, was they were going to circle the wagons to protect Joe Biden, because this was about the 2024 election, not about the law, not about whether or not Joe Biden did wrong. What happened in that hearing was politics overtook the legal system. And because of that, the Democrats basically were just doing anything possible to discredit Robert Hur and to read into the record, and the millions of Americans that were watching, lie to them about the fact that Joe Biden is mentally all there.
Yeah, I watched. Like I said, it seemed like he held his own, but he was. I couldn't express enough how the Democrats just piled on that he had totally gave him a free pass. He stood up to him. I give credit to Mr. Hur for that. I noticed when he said they asked if he was a registered Republican, he said, "Yeah, I heard somebody in the background clapping." You know, like I said, it was definitely several hours of some intense conversation.
That's exactly right. And I think one of the things that really Republicans tried to hone in on, and I don't think they did a very good job, was basically making the point that Joe Biden is essentially committed the exact same crime as Donald Trump, and he was not president, which means he didn't have the Presidential Records Act to protect him. But further, he'd been doing it for 40 years. One of the craziest things that nobody seems to understand is it's one thing to violate that as vice president of the United States because you have more access to classified information. But what's nuttier is nobody asked what happened in the United States Senate, because apparently he's been taking home classified information since he was the United States Senator. And for the people at home, you need to understand the following thing. It is next to impossible to steal classified information as a senator because you have to go into a special room to view classified information where you can't bring a cell phone, you can't do all these things. But somehow Joe Biden's got classified information from when he was a senator. The whole thing is completely bizarre. And once again, you're only guilty of willfully retaining classified information if you're a Republican.
I don't understand how he was able to claim as anything like what Trump done. You know, look, I know all he said is it didn't have that red stuff all around the edges. That's the only way he knew it was not to be took home, if it had red stuff around the edges.
Well, look, I think one of the key things here is that I don't think the Department of Justice wanted to make clear that the other reason why they did not prosecute Joe Biden, and that is according to Department of Justice standard is you cannot criminally prosecute a sitting president of the United States. But of course, if he'd said that, guess what? 3 of the 4 prosecutions against Donald Trump would already be wiped away the second they said that.
Well,
See, that is the key point here.
Well, it seemed like in Hur's testimony, he said that the ghostwriter had deleted evidence that he had that Joe Biden told him that there was classified documents in his garage.
Well, yeah, that came from an April 2017 audio tape that you're referring to. And that basically says that he had the mental capacity at the time that he knew he was taking classified documents. That's exactly the point. Everything was there to prove that Joe Biden was guilty of the alleged charge of taking willfully retaining classified documents, which is against the law. But essentially, they had to come up with a reason other than the fact he's a sitting president of the United States not to prosecute him. I will say this, though. Merrick Garland, who's the head of the Department of Justice, who the Democrats wanted as a Supreme Court, because this document came out, he's going to be fired, okay, if Joe Biden wins the second term.
Well, let's go on down a little south here. Now, Fanni Willis's boyfriend, Nathan Wade, who she hired as special counsel in the Fulton County, Georgia election interference case against former President Trump, resigned after Judge Scott McAfee gave the district attorney's office an ultimatum. I got a little clip here for me to play this.
Major ruling today means the Georgia election interference case against former President Trump and his 14 co-defendants can continue, with Fulton County District Attorney Fanni Willis still in charge, but with one significant condition. The special prosecutor she hired to lead the case, Nathan Wade, has to go, and he has now resigned. Judge Scott McAfee ruled that the, quote, appearance of impropriety caused by the romantic relationship between Willis and Wade means the pair cannot remain on the case together.
This is only a partial victory for the DA, and it does come at substantial professional and personal cost to her and Mr. Wade.
Willis gave fiery testimony last month refuting allegations that she benefited financially from the relationship through romantic getaways. She and Wade also forcefully denied lying about the start of their relationship, insisting it did not become romantic until after she hired him.
You think I'm on trial? These people are on trial for trying to steal an election in 2020. I'm not on trial, no matter how hard you try to put me on trial.
Former President Trump's attorney in a statement saying the court had not afforded, quote, appropriate significance to the prosecutorial misconduct of Willis and Wade, including the financial benefits, adding, we will use all legal options available as we continue to fight to end this case. Further challenges could push the trial over whether Mr. Trump and his allies tried to illegally overturn Georgia's 2020 election results until after the 2024 election.
Now, the reason I want to play that last part is what this is saying to me is that judge kind of split the baby. He kind of, so either way is good for Trump because this will never happen until after November.
We don't know if this trial is going to happen. It still does not have a trial date on the calendar, but I think what Judge Scott McAfee did was basically spineless and, driven by political motives. Let's understand why, to your point. When you look at it, okay, Willis and Wade are essentially conjoined twins when it comes to the allegations. Therefore, if one must go, they both have to go because the standard is the appearance of impropriety. If they lied for each other, then guess what? They're both out. But the other thing is, and here's where the political motivation comes in, and this is why, to your point, he split the baby. Judge McAfee is on the ballot in Fulton County in May, and he's being primary. And if he tosses both of them, he can kiss his political elected judge career goodbye because there will be repercussions for going after Fanni Willis. None of this should inspire confidence in the American legal system. It's why I'm against, really, at the end of the day, elected judges. Because when you have elected judges, I'm not saying appointed judges are perfect either, but when you have elected judges, the politics always seems to come before the law.
Well, like I said, it was interesting to me. Basically, they've already proven that Fanni Willis and her boyfriend had told lies. They've been together. And I mean, if you watched his testimony, he did these like pregnant pauses. It was so long, that between questions, it just was so telling. I mean, if you know the answer, you're going to be pretty quick on it. You ain't got to sit there and think for, 15, 20 seconds.
I mean, the whole ordeal is like a bad episode of The Real Housewives of Fulton County. I mean, the whole thing should be made into a TV movie. And look, I think it taints the investigation going forward. If they do convict Donald Trump for whatever nonsense, because again, it's Fulton County, it's like 80% Democrat. Let's remember he's got a great course for appeal. But again, this goes back to lawfare. And this is the problem. And that is using the law to go after your political opponent to achieve a political end. And that is what is going on here. And I want to make something else good because very few Republicans stand up and say this every time the media or the Democrats say this. Attempting to overturn an election is not a crime.
Right.
Nowhere in the criminal code is that a crime. Okay. Now, obviously, if you do it through really illegal means, it is. But that's why. But Donald Trump has not been charged in any of these cases for attempting to overturn an election. And that needs to be made clear because it is a terrible talking point that the media and the Democrats get to use.
But still, I mean, there's no chance that they're going to get this in front of a jury or anything before the election. So it's really a plus for Trump.
Well, we don't know that. The chances are you're absolutely right. That probably will not happen. And it is a plus overall for Trump. I think one thing that needs to occur here is this whole trial could be stopped if the Attorney General of Georgia or the governor of Georgia appoints a special prosecutor to investigate this whole thing, which is what he should do because, I think the judge said it himself. He was basically, if you read the judge's ruling, he's like, there's an odor of mendacity here. He's telling you that nothing smells right. And yet he's got to come out with this ruling the way he's coming out.
Well, we'll move on back down to Florida. Florida is faced with the likelihood of a massive invasion by refugees from Haiti. Governor Ron DeSantis said in Polk County that he would send them all back. No need to come. We're going to play that.
Recently made an announcement augmenting our resources in southern Florida with respect to warding off a potential influx of vessels carrying illegal immigrants from places like Haiti. but we want to be prepared. It's the same thing we do when we do hurricanes. So we're using all the tools at our disposal here. I think it's already had a big impact in Florida. The last thing you should want to do is get on some boat and think you're going to come through from any of these islands to get to the state of Florida. The most likely scenario is you will be stopped and you will be returned to your country of origin.
I listened to all the ramblings, and like Matt Gaetz said, he didn't want South Florida to become the new Haiti, which, you know, there's a lot of Haitians over there already.
Yeah, let's break this down for the audience a little bit. There are more than 276,000 Haitians in the state of Florida. And the country of Haiti has 11 million people. You can't take on 11 million people in the state of Florida. Okay, that's absolutely insane. And the problem I have, and good for Ron DeSantis, I hope he sticks to his word on this because I think he's got the right idea. The problem is the Coast Guard will not stop these boats from coming through. So Florida has to stop them and then turn them over. Look at it a lot like what Greg Abbott's doing, because the Biden administration, remember, the Coast Guard's only job here is really to intercede if life is being lost at sea. Their job is not to stop them from coming into Florida. And you and I know that once you touch dry land in Florida, different laws attach. And if that happens, I'm so old I remember Elian Gonzalez. If that happens, then it's going to be really, really hard to deport them. What DeSantis is saying, and rightfully so, is we're going to stop them in the water. And then once we stop them in the water, the Coast Guard's got to return them. And that's the right way. Somehow I have a feeling the Biden administration will find a way around what Ron DeSantis is doing. But good on Ron DeSantis for being at least proactive.
Well, I hope maybe that now that he's seen that the presidency's not in sight for him in 2024, that he'll get back to doing some good governance in Florida. I mean, like I said, I don't take away from the good that Ron done. You know, I've said that all along. I mean, you know, he is our governor and I support him. I just want him to go back to taking care of Florida and not worrying about other interests.
Yeah, look, I agree with you. And, you know, let me say one more thing about this, because a lot of people don't understand this. Here's something else. So the Miami Herald and the Orlando newspaper have been going after Ron DeSantis because he's been sending resources to Texas to help bolster Governor Greg Abbott's Operation Lone Star. And they say this is all politics, yada, yada. No, actually, it isn't now. Because of the crisis in Haiti, we really need to have a peacekeeping force in Haiti, okay, because we could go in for hours why this has taken place. But remember about 6-7 months ago, you had 15,000 Haitians underneath the bridge in the Del Rio sector of Texas. So frankly, when he's sending resources to Texas, he's actually protecting Florida, because there is going to be an influx of Haitians, not only coming into the Port of Miami, South Florida, etc., but also in the Del Rio sector of Texas. And remember, they were all underneath the bridge because the Texas governor tried to keep them in the country of Mexico.
Yeah, like I said, you know, we get a lot of refugees here in Florida, and like Texas, we don't have the walk-on problem that Texas have, but we do have people that come by boat. It wasn't a few months ago that an employee of mine was over on the other coast and seen a bunch of people coming in by boat. So, I mean, you know, it happens more than people realize here.
And the other thing is, when it comes to refugees, let's understand something. A lot of times we give temporary asylum. I remember what was the earthquake in Haiti, like in the 80s, and we gave temporary asylum, and many of them settled in, you know, Florida. Yeah. But when the problem ceased, they didn't go back. See, right. That is the problem I have with refugees and asylum. And the other thing is, the Democrats go out there and call you heartless. And what they don't seem to understand is most of them are faking it. They are posing this. Let me give you the time. Every time the Democrats say, oh, they're asylum seekers, less than 10% of the people that declare asylum actually qualify for asylum. And we're talking about at the lowest standard. So if there are 8 million asylum cases right now, let's say, in front of immigration judges in America, remember, only 800,000 of them might actually get through. And that is the whole point. You hear words like refugee and you hear asylum, and the problem is it's a lot of fraud.
I agree. Like I said, we just have to I'm like you. I hope Ron holds up what he's saying. He put pen to paper up in Polk County. We'll just have to see how that progresses. Well, it's about time when we get to the part of the show we like to talk about. We call
The Man's Trash.
The Man's Trash. For today on The Man's Trash, I want to talk about the Lee County School District. Now, they have again failed to put adequate measures to keep our students safe. A teacher's assistant, Lauren King, was arrested for sexually assaulting a student, and parents have concern that more students may have been abused. I'm going to play a little clip from there.
According to a source close to the investigation, the paraprofessional Lauren King worked at Royal Palm Exceptional Center in Dunbar. Police say King and a student sent over 4,000 text messages to each other in a month. They say she also sent nude photos and videos of her performing a sexual act. According to FMPD, this eventually escalated into King sexually battering the student outside of class. We tracked down where King lived and spoke with her child's grandmother, asking her about the allegations.
We don't hang out, we don't do things. She's my grandson's mom, period. I'm being here for my grandson. So hopefully this all works out for the best and life gets back to normal.
The Lee County School District issued a statement and says the district does not tolerate this kind of behavior and that the employee involved was immediately removed from the school when the allegations were reported, pending the outcome of an investigation. Fox 4 also contacted the victim's family, and their attorney sent us a statement saying, in part, the school district of Lee County failed systematically, and the school district bears responsibility for allowing such a dangerous individual near our children. King was arrested on Thursday at Enclave Apartments off Central Avenue and went to the Lee County Jail.
Now, Ford, this is a deeply troubling story. Anybody that don't know, Royal Palm is Royal Palm Exceptional Center. That is for children that have special needs or have emotional issues and stuff like that. This woman worked in the capacity there as a teacher's aide. And, you know, I hate to say it, but there's no way that there wasn't signs that the other staff members should have took note of. You know, I've know that for a fact that the child's behavior changed drastically almost a year ago. So what is that saying? I mean, and you know, is there more children involved? I'm not sure, but I know that there's certainly speculation and talk. She actually told the boy, the student, now let me tell you, this is a 13-year-old student who would have been 12 when this relationship started. She actually told the boy that she had messed with some other child to make him jealous. So, for what are we looking at? What is going on in society today?
Look, if these allegations are true, this is what the death penalty is for. The idea of, I can't even believe it, sexually touching an underage child with special needs, there's a special place in hell for people who do that. Now, let's step back and let's talk about the Lee County School District. Yes, I do believe if these allegations are true, that they do bear some responsibility. To your point, there's allegations that signs were everywhere. Well, if that's the case, you got to get to the bottom of this, and you have to actually find out if there is anyone else like the alleged victim, you know, who might have encountered the same problem. I mean, this is the problem. You can't sweep this under the rug. This is the whole point of education, and that is to make it safe for the student/children and to try to get it done on time. That is really the goal. And if you can't keep them safe from predators, that's a huge problem.
Well, you can't have the predators being the ones that are supposed to be the safety mechanism. Now,
yeah, you got to be vetting your own staff. You can't be not vetting your own staff, because that's the first thing you have to hold accountable is yourself. I mean, this is unbelievable, these allegations. Again, I'm going to use the word allegations until they're proven true or not true in a court of law.
Right. I understand. Well, you know, again, like I said, I've complained to the district about what goes on at that school previously. In November, I personally contacted the school about allegations that another student had been thrown in a trash receptacle by its teacher. I heard nothing else from that, nothing at all. Well, I called about this case, the Lauren King case, and I talked to the school district, and I brought that up again. Now, I brought that up again. I got a call on Saturday from the Fort Myers Police Department, and I told them exactly the same thing I told the school district. And I brought this up again that, I'd complained that they already checked the staff, that I had reports before of this happening with the kid in the trash can. Not until after I talked to that Fort Myers Police Department did anybody ever report on this. And this is shocking me. And I got a little clip to prove what I'm saying here.
Horrifying story is coming from Royal Palm School.
Lois and Chris, the mom told me that her son's teacher put him in a trash can, left marks on his body, and left her devastated for her son. She told me days turned into weeks, turned into months, and Lee County Schools has stayed silent about what happened. So she told me she decided to speak up.
A mother told me she took this picture in shock, in fear, in distress. She said her 11-year-old son came home from Royal Palm School in early November and accused his teacher of assaulting him.
It makes me feel very angry, and you feel like your hands are tied,
She told me she tried to do something, anything about it. First, she took her son to the hospital. Then she called the Fort Myers Police Department. This police report from November 3rd says when FMPD officers arrived at the hospital, the boy told them he and his teacher were arguing about an assignment. That's when the 5th grader said his teacher grabbed him by his ankles and put him in a trash can, and that caused the bruise.
I pressed charges.
The mom sent me this email from Lee County Schools. It says the teacher was removed pending the outcome of the investigation. 5 months later, the mom says the teacher is back on the job, back at Royal Palm. The school is for children with developmental challenges, and the boy in question does have emotional behavioral issues. But mom told me no one from Lee County Schools ever called to tell her the results of any investigation or that the teacher is back at school.
My son keeps saying, Mommy, I'm afraid. I don't want to go to school. I don't want to come across this man, and I don't want to see his face. He's back. He's back, ready to target other kids, ready to abuse other kids, and nobody knows this.
Mom told me that's why she came to me, asked me to protect her identity. She said she feels hopeless, alone, scared for her son, and scared if the teacher remains, maybe other moms may have to take a picture like this one.
Because apparently they're not being protected by the people that are supposed to be protecting them.
Lord, to me, it's heartbreaking that a mother's having to reach out. And again, we were contacted about this story right after it happened. I had a lady that works with the ESE programs call me and say, hey, can you check out and see if you can find anything out about this? Well, I did contact the school district. This mother tells you she contacted the school district. Nothing was done, nothing was said until after this Lauren King case gets broke.
Look, there's something going on at Royal Palm, and Lee County School District needs to honestly have an audit, because, I mean, you got to start looking at the staff and the teachers, because when you have two outrageous situations like this, chances are there are a few more. And that is really the issue.
Yeah, and it's sad. We get a lot of reports, and I know that some of the students that attend Royal Palm can be difficult. I'm not fighting that at all, by no means. However, we need trained staff that are equipped for those occasions. Not somebody's going to toss somebody into a trash can. Not a teacher's aide that's going to be molesting your children. We need somebody to take accountability for the actions of that staff. And that's what the school district's supposed to do. They're supposed to be accountable for the actions of the staff. They're not being held accountable for this.
Look, I think you're absolutely right. And let me reiterate something you just said. When it comes to special needs students, your teachers have to be almost, superhuman, because it requires a lot of work, and it's a lot more than a lot of other teachers have to deal with. But at the same time, when you have this situation, the school district needs to step up, be accountable, get to the bottom of the problem, because at the end of the day, it brings me back to what I told you. The whole deal is to have an environment with an education that is safe and delivered on time. And that is not what's happening in Royal Palm. And it's tough to harp on this, and I hope I'm wrong. But if you have two egregious cases like this, chances are there are a lot more.
Oh, I'm sure there's a lot more. We've had several things come across my desk in the last few weeks, but again, I want to make sure that the teachers. Now, I support the teachers. That's a tough job, and I don't. I'm not saying anything against teachers per se. I'm saying there's always a few bad apples in every batch, and that's no matter what profession you're in. The problem is it the lack of teachers that's the concern that we're overlooking these items? I mean, what is the real meat of this that goes in this sandwich? Should they be vetting them better? Should they have somebody that's doing, like you said, an audit? Should they have somebody that generally just goes to the schools and checks things out once in a while without anybody even being informed? What is the answer? I don't know, but we got to do something to protect the children.
That's right. We don't know the answer. We can assume the problem is oversight. Maybe they're having an issue with recruiting special needs teachers to Lee County. I don't know that. I don't want to give the school district an out just so they can say that. It seems to me more that this is an oversight and an accountability problem. But again, whatever it may be, they need to put together a task force and get to the bottom of this, because if this is going on at Royal Palm, which again, special needs school, chances are it might be going on in other places, and you need to come up with a way to neutralize it both in a regular student setting and a special needs student setting.
Well, forward on our final story, we're going to talk about Fort Myers Beach, and they're building a new strip club. Vixens is opening up a new adult entertainment facility where the former Fantasies Exotic Dance Club existed, and that was before Hurricane Ian. Now, I know that they set up a tent and they done strip club in tent. And I mean, that wasn't very appealing, but I'm going to show you a clip of what's going on.
Vixens Clubs purchased the property 2 months prior to Hurricane Ian. After 12 feet of storm surge destroyed the former Fantasies adult nightclub, the owners doubled down and purchased the adjacent parcels as well.
Well, we had pushback from one neighbor, but we bought them. So hopefully we made everybody happy.
Now John Gallagher is bridge neighbors, if you will, with the likes of new developments like Margaritaville. He's president of Vixens Clubs after representing Vixens as their lawyer for more than 25 years. And when you look at the sign that shows you what's coming soon, the building looks like it's 2 stories. So we asked John, exactly what are you planning to build here? Turns out he's planning for his club to still be standing after future hurricanes.
Well, it's not 2 stories, it's 1 story, okay? It's going to be 25 feet. The interior ceiling will be 25 feet high, but it will be wide open, okay? And so, for light shows and aerialists and things of that nature, that gives them a lot more room to work.
Ford, like I said, he's got big plans. He's got aerialists, all kind of stuff coming in that building. But the real big question here is he's building a facility that was much larger than the one that was there before. Now, I've owned a business on Fort Myers Beach. This facility is just before the bridge, before you go over onto the main island. Now, they didn't want something like a tattoo shop to be the first thing you seen on Fort Myers Beach. And I mean, the city of Fort Myers Beach fought against tattoo shops for years. Now they've got a big, huge new facility to welcome you to Fort Myers Beach. That's the strip club. I mean, I don't know what makes it okay for a strip club versus a tattoo shop, but I think many residents have a concern here.
Well, there's a lot to unpack in this story. Let me just start with the beginning. The idea previously of a strip club in a tent in the summer in Florida does not make for the best environment. Let's just put it that way. That's got to be a gamey smell all around. Now, as to your point about the aesthetics of Fort Myers Beach, no, I do not think it's great that when you come into Fort Myers Beach, you're going to see a brand new strip club. But it is what it is as far as I can tell. It seems to me very interesting, though, how all of a sudden Vixen seems to have this brilliant new building, and it seems to be some players that we know seem to be working on this project.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say this is a story that we'll be discussing more as allegations that a seated Lee County Board of County Commissioner member is expected of profiting from this, as well as a candidate for a potential seat on the Lee County Board of County Commissioners. Now, I don't know if there's what's going on here, but who's really benefiting from this? I mean, that's the question. And I've had many calls on this. I mean, this is something, for some reason, has been a hotbed of activity.
Well, look, come on. We all know that anytime you talk about strip clubs and when it comes to news, sex always sells. At the same time, I think that there's a lot of different angles to this story. I'm very interested to see how this rendering is actually going to pan out as well, because it does seem to be not only, you're talking about a strip club on the way to Fort Myers Beach. It also seems to be, again, we don't know yet, also a really eyesore, if you will.
Well, the statement that the guy made is so along the lines of what I've been saying for years. Fort Myers Beach used to be the beach where the local Floridians came to relax. People from like Central Florida, this was their vacation. And a family that didn't have a lot of funds could afford a night or two on Fort Myers Beach. That's no longer the case with Margaritaville open up, and that's exactly what this new owner of Vixen said. He said, "Look, we're catering to the wealthy people, and they're going to be coming with this Margaritaville." So the dynamic of what once was Fantasies, which was a pretty divey little small strip club, now has become this big elaborate, almost Las Vegas style striptease act with aerial lifts and light shows. I mean, it's quite the substantial change.
Well, look, I've said this in response to you about this. The honky tonk culture of Fort Myers Beach is gone now, and the developers want to turn it into what I call Mercado North. They're not interested in catering to Floridians. They're interested in catering to wealthy tourists from everywhere but Florida. And that is exactly what is going on here. But you've also got some people that it seems in the process of redeveloping Fort Myers Beach seem to be possibly profiting in a lot of different ways. How shall I say?
Well, maybe this is part of Resilient Lee.
I don't know what to tell you, my friend. I do not know what to tell you.
Well, Ford, I appreciate you joining me today, and I hope you have a happy St. Patrick's Day. You got any special green eggs and ham dinners or anything you're going to do?
Well, as somebody with an Irish last name, when you have St. Patrick's Day, the idea is it's really no different than any other day now, is it? Let's just put it this way. Here's my message to everybody. On St. Patrick's Day, do not drink and drive. That is the only thing I ask. After that, have all the fun you want, and I do not like cabbage, so ditch the cabbage.
I like cabbage. One thing I want to say as a final comment, I have a lot of people calling me and asking me about some of the stories we've previously done and why that nobody else is doing anything about it. I've talked about toxic waste. I've talked about seated mayors that are corrupt and have some questionable past. And the thing they say, well, is anything ever going to happen? I want to tell you that locally, I don't believe anything's ever going to happen, but you got to continue to make your voices heard. Eventually, somebody from outside the area is going to pick up on what's going on here, and that's when maybe we can find some relief here in Lee County. I'm Smokin Joe with the Cracker Culture Podcast here on Smokin Joe Nation YouTube and Cracker Culture Rumble, along with Fort O'Connell. We love you, Florida. We'll see you again soon.